You just lost your phone signal for 10 minutes and it felt like a small death. Your chest got tight. Your mind ran through worst-case scenarios. Now imagine losing a person, someone you shared a fire with every single night of your life. But the real answer to what happens next is far stranger than grief alone. It's older than language. It's older than your species, in fact. Somewhere in the Zagros Mountains, in a cave called Shanidar, a Neanderthal was buried around 60,000 years ago. Pollen was found packed into the soil around the body. For decades, researchers believed this meant flowers had been laid across the grave, a funeral, a ritual, proof that Neanderthals mourned the way you do. Was that true? Not exactly. Later analysis, led by archaeologists including Chris Hunt, suggested the pollen may have been carried in by burrowing bees, not human hands. The flower burial story fell apart. But here's the twist. The body itself was still deliberately placed in the earth, curled, positioned, covered. Someone made a choice about what to do with the dead. That choice is the real ritual, not the flowers, the decision. Your ancestors, and even species that weren't your direct ancestors, kept making that same choice over and over, hundreds of thousands of years before anyone wrote a word down. Why? Death creates a problem that no other event in nature quite creates. A body that was a person yesterday is now just tissue. It will decay. It will attract scavengers. It will smell. Every social animal that lives long enough runs into this problem eventually. Most walk away. You don't. Neither did the humans at Kafse Cave in Israel, where archaeologist Irela Hovers documented one of the earliest deliberate burials, dated to nearly 100,000 years ago. A body was placed in a shallow pit, with deer antlers positioned near the hands. Antlers don't fall into a grave by accident. Someone carried them there. Someone decided the dead needed something with them. This is where it gets uncomfortable, and also where it gets interesting. You might assume burial began because early humans understood disease or wanted to protect the living from bacteria. That's a modern explanation dressed up in an ancient story. The evidence doesn't support it. There's no indication that Paleolithic humans understood microbes at all. So if it wasn't hygiene, what was it? Something closer to unbearable absence. Primatologist James Anderson, who studies chimpanzee behavior at the University of Stirling, has documented chimps sitting beside dead group members for hours, grooming them, refusing to leave, mothers carrying dead infants for days, sometimes weeks, long after decomposition has begun. No burial, no ritual, just refusal. Refusal to accept that the body in front of them is no longer the individual they knew. You share that refusal. It's wired into you. But somewhere between that chimpanzee holding on to a corpse and a Neanderthal placing a body into a shaped pit in the ground, something changed. The refusal turned into an action. Grief became a behavior instead of just a feeling. That shift might be the real birth of ritual. Not art, not language. Grief, translated into a task your hands could perform. Paul Pettit, an archaeologist who has spent decades studying Paleolithic burial, argues that the earliest graves weren't about honoring the dead in the way you might picture it today. They were about closing a wound in the group. A person disappears from daily life. Their absence has to be processed somehow, physically, by the people left behind. Digging a hole and placing a body inside it does something a memory cannot do. It gives grief an ending point, a location, a closed door. Think about what you do today when someone dies. You don't just feel sad, you act. You choose a coffin, a plot, a date, an outfit. You gather people in one place at one time. None of that is medically necessary. None of it stops decomposition or protects anyone's health. So why do you still do it tens of thousands of years after Shanidar? Because the body needs somewhere to put its grief, and rituals are where grief goes when it has nowhere else to go. There's a detail from later prehistory that makes this even stranger. At Sungir, in what is now Russia, archaeologists uncovered a burial dated to roughly 34,000 years ago, containing two children laid head-to-head, covered in thousands of individually carved ivory beads. Each bead alone would have taken hours to make. Thousands of them meant thousands of hours of labor, poured into two bodies that could no longer feel, see, or wear anything at all. That effort wasn't for the dead, it was for everyone still standing at the edge of that grave. Here's the part that should make you sit with your phone down for a second. You still do this. Not with ivory beads, but with flowers flown in from other countries, with black clothing, with candles, with songs picked out in advance, with photographs printed and framed. None of it changes the outcome. The person is still gone. But you do it anyway. And you do it because your species has never once, in over 100,000 years, found a version of grief that could be handled by feeling alone. It has always needed a job to do. Modern grief researchers, including psychologist Colin Murray Parkes, whose work on bereavement shaped how we understand mourning today, describe grief as a process of relearning the world without the person in it. That relearning takes place through action. Visiting a grave, repeating a name, retelling a story. It's the same instinct that placed antlers in a hand 96,000 years ago. You are still, in a very real sense, digging that same hole. Maybe that's the strangest part of all this. You assume ritual is a cultural invention, something taught to you, something you could theoretically live without. But if something buried a body with intention as far back as Neanderthal-era Europe, before spoken language as you know it may have even existed, then ritual isn't decoration on top of grief. It might be grief's original shape. Ask yourself what you would do if you couldn't perform any ritual at all. No funeral, no gathering, no grave to visit. For most people, that idea feels worse than the loss itself. That reaction is not weakness. It's ancient architecture, still standing inside you, built long before anyone could explain why. So the next time your phone signal drops and your chest tightens for 10 minutes over nothing, remember what that feeling is actually made of. It's the same machinery that once made a person kneel beside a body in a cave and decide it could not simply be left there. Small losses borrow the wiring built for the largest one. You didn't invent grief, and you didn't invent the need to act on it. You inherited both from hands far older than your own, still curling a body into the earth, still choosing to do something in a moment when nothing could actually be done.